Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Those of you that are going to go to film school, just know you're going to have to trip balls.
Yeah, to be an artist, you got to pay the price.
It's gonna be a good day. Wake up. Today's gonna be a good.
Hey, welcome everybody back to the podcast. I know it's been a while, so I'm happy you guys are tuning in. Today is going to be a good one. With me today, I got Andrew Pratt, the co-host. And I also have Matthew Dixon from MVP. You guys remember him from a previous episode, but we have a really special guest today. Is Kenny Green. He's coming from war2In Inspector. So I just wanted to show you guys this quick video.
war2In Inspector is a trade school where we transition people from the military into a civilian career, non-destructive testing, primarily quality control, quality assurance, inspection jobs. An example would be we need to test steel material to see the yield strength and tensile strength. So we pull on that material until it yields, and then we pull it further until it fails at that tensile stress. So we would do testing non-destructively to where we can find out the yield strength and the tensile strength, and the material is still useful or remaining in service during the test. Our industry uses radiography, ultrasound, liquid dye penetrant, different methodologies to find material properties in an industrial environment. I've been in the industry since 1989. I traveled extensively, and during those travels, I had multiple conversations with military personnel. It was consistently expressed to me they didn't have a good exit strategy for the military, and my heart kind of poured out to these guys, and this is the result. The need was identified through, multiple conversations with veterans as I traveled, but it's definitely open to civilians. So early on, NASET helped us with the business structure and actually taking concepts and ideas and partnering us with people in the business community that could help us turn this into a business. They built the Business Accelerator building. We were the first tenant in that building, and I believe for the first year, we're the only tenant in that building. That facility was critical to our success, from transitioning from the idea and the concept, then to turning that into a facility that actually offered training and had students. We've had 100% placement of all of our students. Those students are making at or near $100,000 a year initially, right off the bat. It really hit me when we graduated our first student and we were kind of saying our goodbyes. But I really saw a guy walking away that 3 generations from now, our school has been able to secure their finances. That hit me pretty hard, and that was pretty significant realization. Without NASET, this would still be an idea and a dream. NASET took that from an idea to a concept to a business to where we're graduating students. I just really want to say thank you.
It's good stuff, man.
Good stuff.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on, Kenny. Welcome, Matt.
Oh, you bet.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How you guys doing out there in Flagstaff?
Oh, well, we finally got our first 5 days straight without snow. So I think we still have about 5 feet on the ground at the edge of the roof where the roof sheds off the snow. But looks like we're going to have a good week at least. So awesome. Maybe we'll get some rain and melt that snow a little bit.
Well, I appreciate having you on. Obviously, with this podcast, myself and Andrew wanted to start it to basically be able to tell the stories of people that are inspiring. And so today I'm really happy to have you on, as well as Matthew Dixon from MVP. Both of you guys are doing really the same thing, which is taking care of military veterans and helping them transition and to find another calling. So I'm really excited. I just want you to be able to tell your story for all the viewers and those, and especially in hopes to finding some of those military vets or even civilians that are trying to transition to another career field, that this could be something that that they could do. So thank you guys for being here. Andrew, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing good, man. I'm just trying to stay dry. It's been cold and rainy up here in Virginia these last couple of days.
It's even raining in California. We're just having this weird weather, right? It's been snowing in California too. So I've been.
Yeah, I saw a picture of the Hollywood sign with snow behind it. That was kind of crazy.
Global warming, you know, it's who is it? What's the young lady's name? Gretchen something.
Oh, Thornburg.
Thornburg. What's her name?
Yeah,
Greta Thornburg or something like that. Yeah,
she's all upset about global warming, so I don't know. So. Hey Matthew, thank you for coming back on. It's been a while since we had a chance to talk to you, so it's good to have you here to really be able to see what MVP is doing. And I really wanted to get you guys together. Kenny and I have some history together too. We've known each other for a while. And also being married into the family. So it's good to have you guys. And I think there's going to be a lot that's going to come out of this podcast as we start to discuss it. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I really want Kenny to be able to kind of tell his story of what he does, how he got into, the industry.
Yeah, I guess when I was a kid, my dad worked offshore and he was a welder, has been his whole life. And so I kind of gravitated to that industry, and I was really, on track to be a welder. Had a sponsor to get in the Iron Workers Union, Local 433. And shortly before that started, my dad was working on the 73-story downtown LA, white building with the crown, kind of lit up crown on top. And so he came home with the information about an instructor, a great guy, Robert Johnson, that wanted to train a UT inspector. So I kind of took a right turn, Clyde, and quickly kind of deviated into the same industry, but doing the inspection. So I was doing that, by the time I was 20. And I guess I was really cut out for it. I took to it. I really thought I was just taking a semester off of college to kind of earn some better income, and I never looked back. So I've been in the industry since 89, started training in 88. And so I really kind of followed our kind of family footsteps in a sense, but instead of doing the actual welding, we're doing the inspection of welds.
That's awesome. So yeah, Andrew was talking about too, that he knows somebody in his family that's been in the industry for a while, a number of years, and he's in his 70s from the Vietnam era. So I thought that was kind of a unique thing and pretty awesome. So you got into it. So now you've been in the industry for, what is that, 11 and 35 years or something crazy?
Yeah,
like that?
34, I think we're on 34, 35 years. Yeah.
I think if you stuck with it, man, you might find a knack for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying not to quit too soon,
What is it for retirement? Just another 35, or you got to do 70 years in the industry, don't you?
Yeah, 70. I think it's 70 years now. Just straight 70, right?
Those damn welds, man. Every 70
Once
years.
you get good at climbing towers, you don't ever look back.
So, yeah, I mean, there's such a demand for it too,
Yeah,
it's because it takes a certain person to want to sit there and continuously climb that tower with that equipment to put those welds, inspect those welds, and to go up there on a continuous basis, man. I mean, you were talking about your dad being the welder offshore and growing up in that life, and that's a tough environment, with offshore work, and their schedule and the rigors that they go through, and and it's pretty phenomenal that you're able to take that education, that knowledge from your dad, and then take it one step up, and I think that's, as we're all fathers in here, and seeing that, and that's really awesome. That it speaks a lot to your credit and your work ethic too.
Well, King Kong, like, he came overseas and that's all he was doing was climbing that tower to go and fucking inspect it. But then he started attacking him and shit. It's like, what are you going to do? And now, I mean, thank God we have Kenny, because now we don't have to have.
Well, he didn't have the degree from war2In instructor. That's why they wanted to get him down.
Yeah, it was the language barrier.
So
it was the language barrier, but
so simple a monkey can do it.
Yeah, he would have been swinging on Tower 1 now instead of the
Empire State Building. What is it?
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah,
picking
funny
up
thing
women.
is,
You know what I mean? So,
my daughter, because I've kind of had that travel lifestyle for inspection, and that can leave you with some regrets with young kids. And
mhm.
I'll try not to let this get to me, but just the other day, about a week ago, my daughter Natalie sent me, this song, "Old Man" from Zach Bryan. Don't know if you just listen to it on your own time, man, and man, be ready. It's gonna get you. But yeah, so that was a gift from my daughter to me to let me know that, by her, and I've really done right.
Oh, yeah.
And sorry, I should have saved that for the end.
Nah, man. I mean, dude,
First
that's
3 minutes we get you crying. I was just kidding about the King Kong joke, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I
good
think that's
stuff.
phenomenal.
If you hear that song, man, it kind of talks to a daughter talking to her dad, and kind of like they don't make them like that anymore.
Well,
But
we'll have to play it on the outro. We'll have to play it at the
yeah,
end of
but
this.
my dad was that kind of a guy, and in high demand as a welder, flying them all over to make a one weld, type of a guy.
Well,
Well,
that's
Matthew-
wild. Yeah, my
ahead,
my children's grandfather on their mom's side, he does what you do, and does the inspections, and he travels all the time. They're almost never home. And it definitely takes a certain kind of person to be willing to be on the road traveling. And I mean, I know you get to work, when you want to work. You can take off when you want to take off a lot of times with the way these contracts are made up, but he's just always on the go,
Yeah,
and it's just really interesting. I mean, it's good money, it's good, good benefits and everything, but it's also very interesting, like the sacrifices he has to make to be on the road all the time.
yeah, absolutely. And that's our industry. You get a ton of hours. You're doing a lot of times 7/12s, 6/10, 7/12s. So here at our school, we do 10-hour days because we want everybody to know that's a regular day. 8 hours seems like a short day. It's normally 12s. So we kind of set our school up the same way. So we do 4/10s Monday through Thursday, have 3-day weekends every weekend. But that way, when we go into the field, we're not hit by hard by a 12-hour day, sometimes a 14-hour day. We're kind of in the groove, even with our students.
Yeah, it takes like a week or two just to get into that cycle, and especially with deploying. Matthew will say the same thing. I mean, when we're out there in Iraq and stuff, or Afghanistan, we're out there doing 12s, 12 on, 12 off. When ultimately with the pass downs and different things, for me, in the aviation side, which is kind of close to, what you're doing as far, it's not combat, obviously, we're not going on patrol, but when you have a 12 on, 12 off, you come in, I mean, you're still doing pass down. I mean, that 12 already hit. So you're already, it's 13. Then you go back and okay, now I've got 11 hours, 10 hours. Do I call home? Do I get some food? And then
I try to wind down.
Wind down and watch a movie. You know what I mean? It's like one thing
a day, right?
Choose it wisely. But,
yeah.
I can see why you get emotional when you talk about these things with like family and things like that, because you're working your ass off and it's hard. And those things, you're working hard and it's important. It's the same thing that military veterans, they have, anybody that's traveling, that's doing hard work in order to, put a life and put food on the table for their family. It's real, man. So that's the American way, right? So being a righteous dad, being a good father, being a good man, teaching those intangible qualities and courage and character, those are the things that what it's all about, and that's what Righteous Dad's trying to bring to the table too. So more in the future, we're going to be doing some book series on intentional father and a book thing and talking about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? How do we make better men? You know what I mean? Together. And they make greater fathers. Good fathers is going to make the world change, right? It's going to make the world a better place.
Absolutely.
So speaking of fathers, look, I got a little one right here.
All right.
Sorry, I gotta
Adeline, hi, what are you doing? She can't hear you.
I got headphones on. Yeah. Say hi, Brian.
Hi.
I gotta cut the tip off a popsicle. Here you go, honey.
Yeah, put the butcher knife away. What's up? No, the scissors. She comes up
those
with a butcher
are
knife.
dangerous. We used to supply those free for hydration, and we actually had a student lose a tooth.
Biting off like one of the Otter Pops.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to ruin it for everybody every time, man.
All right, we're gonna have to do some dental inspection to make sure that these guys don't have any kind of issues. So, Awesome.
Well,
So let's
go ahead. Just one thing, Gunny. I think that you're watching that video and seeing how veterans really spoke to you as well, Kenny, and something that Gunny was talking about with the transition and being able to do those 12 on 12s off, or in the infantry they do 1 week on, 1 week off. 1 week of patrols, next week is off. So what are you doing during your downtime? That downtime for a lot of veterans, for a lot of people, especially that suffered anything traumatic, that's whenever all their demons hit them extremely hard, is in that downtime. That's when you second guess yourself. I can't tell you how many times, like when I have my kids, if I fuss at them and then they go home with their mom, you can ask my wife. It's like I sit there and I just get so sad. It's like, man, I didn't take that time to enjoy it with them. So it's always that downtime. And I think something that you pointed out, Kenny, was really phenomenal. Is you're taking a lot of these veterans and transitioning from a world that is, every single day you live, breathe, die by it, no matter what branch you're in. If you're living on base, living base housing, whatever it is, every day you live. Yeah, you have the weekends off when you're not on deployment, but you can't escape that branch. You couldn't escape the Marine Corps. You can't. You go outside the base, you're surrounded, right? But you're now taking those veterans and where they're transitioning and struggling with that, but you're putting them straight back on a schedule that in a realistic expected schedule of 410s. I can't tell you that, how hard it was for me to transition over. And then there's yeah, Matt, you can pick your schedule. Shit. Okay. I'll work 2 hours one day, 12 hours the next day, 14 hours one day, then 2 hours this, so if you allow me to work it in my own method, then it's not really what's going to suffice in the civilian world. But you're setting them up saying, look, come in, bust ass for 10 hours for 4 days. Now you have 3 days off. What are you going to do at that time? You're pushing people out in the real world, making a very good and comfortable living financially. So what are you going to do in your spare time? I mean, because you've seen it just like I have, and everybody has. They people young, fresh out the military, start making really good money on the civilian side. A year from there, they're broke because they're used to the schedule they've made up. But you're instilling in them not only a profession and a job, but discipline on the civilian side and a way of getting back on schedule, man. And I can't applaud you more than that. I mean, that's just absolutely phenomenal, and especially in that transition phase, it's great to look at it from that angle, man.
Yeah, and I think they they gravitate right to that. And, we kind of just set the standard, and then I see that their discipline rubs off on all of our civilian students. And typically in a full semester, we won't have one student tardy one time in the entire semester.
That's amazing.
And I'm talking to some of the young civilian students that in high school, they probably missed 30 days and were late, 2 days a week. And so the veterans are bringing that discipline, and we kind of set the standard, and we have our own way of dealing with it. It's usually that first week that we get some civilians, that door's locked at 7:30. You're banging on the door. Like, you're late. Now you're just sitting in the parking lot until we're done with our morning meeting. And that doesn't happen again. Everybody kind of friendly takes care of everybody and makes sure they don't want to do that again. So it's all good it's really especially good for the civilians, how the military's discipline is something that all of a sudden they rise to that expectation.
So let me ask you something too. I want to go into that a little bit. So what kind of, let's tell the origin story of how you created the actual school, war2In, and like what made you go from like, having really the civilians, and I think you were doing some consulting work and some other things for the industry, right? For, having so much experience. What really had you jump off that ledge to say, I'm going to start a school? And then what's piqued that interest about? I mean, you've seen the video of you talking to veterans, but how did Warrior to Inspector actually come about?
Yeah. So our industry, that's, I think, why Dixon and I really hit it off, because we both were already familiar with the industry, and that's real rare. You'll talk to 100 people before you run into somebody that knows about non-destructive testing. So in this industry, and I've been on every side of it, a tech trying to get into the industry, an employer trying to hire somebody that's actually qualified, And then I've worked at some of the best schools in the industry, and those schools don't offer the complete package of, we'll give you your classroom hours, we'll give you all your experience, we'll give you your certifications, you'll use your certifications as a student, even on paid internships, and then you're really ready for employment. So we get into the industry, unfortunately, by struggling through or working through some classes and then struggling through the OJT. I can knock on a door of an employer and say, hey, I have my 80-hour ultrasonic testing class. And they go, great, you need 840 hours of experience before I can generate any revenue with you. So that's been the industry. And so kind of being on every side of that coin, I always kind of thought, what would be the perfect way to do this, or the ideal way, and what's missing with all these other avenues. And that's probably why people aren't getting into the industry, because they struggle so much to actually go to a school and walk away with anything valuable. So I just, God just planted this idea. A 14-hour drive from Tulsa, Oklahoma to Flagstaff was a brain dump of a business plan. And I spent 3 years in.
Was that the family reunion when you're coming down there?
That was
from Oklahoma?
No, but that was prior to that. But that was a discussion of that idea was at the family reunion in 2014. And so these ideas kind of, how could the industry be corrected? And I always thought somebody would do this over the years. And, after 20, 30 years, it became
ends up being you.
Nobody else was interested. So I think where it really hit me with the veterans is during the years of like 2011 to 2014, I really traveled a lot. I was pretty much wearing out airplanes with Southwest Airlines, United, commercial flights. I was flying all over the place. And I don't know, maybe every fourth flight, I was sitting in the airport or on my flight or one of the connections with veteran and just talking to him. And in my mind, this was rolling like, wow, I could hook you up. And I just maybe didn't mention it, but I really kind of thought, and a lot of them had great careers and plans, but most of them didn't really know. And I had a lot of the same response. If I don't find anything, then I'm going to re-enlist. So kind of hearing that so many times, and I kept hearing this voice in my head, I could hook you up. Man, if I had a year and a half with you, I could hook you up. And pretty soon I got to where I kind of felt you either put up or shut up. And I kind of thought, hey, I could be this guy that could hook you up.
You got to burn the bridges, or you got to burn the boats, right? You got to just
right.
go for it. Yep.
Yeah,
and
it's like
just be a jerk and not do it.
Right. As well, it's like what Gandhi says, it's something to the effect of be the change that you want to see in the world. And every once in a while, I mean, I can probably name off like on one hand how many times this has happened in my life where I've noticed a vacuum and I was able to, sit back and see the opportunity in front of me and take advantage of it. And it seems as though that was definitely that moment for you where you saw the vacuum, you saw a need for a proper training program, and then you were able to interact and notice a vacuum with the veterans and the opportunity sitting right there in front of you to, help people transition from the military. So that's really awesome that you were able to put two and two together and create the opportunities that you've created. I'm just curious, how long does it take to go through the training program for your school?
So it's 3 semesters. 3 4-month semesters. We have a 1-month winter break and a 3-month summer break. So that 3-month summer break is an extended period for our students to get out in the field on paid internships.
Nice.
So it's a year and a half, but it's 12 months over a year and a half period.
Okay, so they basically it's 4 months take with 1 or 8 months, 9 months with a 1 month break, and then they're able to go do an internship, a paid internship, and then they come back for 4 more months of training to finish out the program.
Well, somewhat, yeah. We have a 4-month semester, and then you can start in the fall. So then you would have your winter break, or you could start in the spring and then have your summer break. The internships are part of our program, and the mandated experience hours that our AS&T, our industry mandates, that can happen in any time. That can be during the middle of the semester. So those in that experience hours, that's constantly happening. So it's not necessarily reserved just for the summer break. So we have students right now. We have 4 students out at nuclear power plants on outages. Those are 4 second semester students, and we're right in the middle of our semester. So it doesn't necessarily have to wait until the summer.
Okay, that's great. That's awesome.
That's phenomenal.
So a little bit of backstory. So the great thing about that too, and Kenny has been able to really, kind of mold or help everybody go through this pipeline, depending on what they're going to be, what kind of issues that they have or time frame. So he's been very flexible with this. I remember, what was it, back in 2015? I don't know when I sent Frady over there, but, I showed up coming from recruiting duty, and I showed up to a helicopter squadron, and I seen, some Marines having the same issue. Like, what am I going to do? I'm getting out. They were done from all the deployments. They didn't know what to do. And one of the guys that really helped me, shout out to Nathan Frady, he really helped me get my collateral duty inspector as part of an inspector on aircraft, because I came to a new platform, new weapon system. And this young man, I think, was probably about 24, 25 at the time. Hard worker. I mean, he's an American boy. He's what you would think. Like, he's a poster boy for the Marine Corps. But I worked night crew with him, and he helped me, schooled me up on the platform aircraft. I got my CDI quick. But as a leader for him, it was hard, because I watched about 10 Marines that were just unmotivated, and they just wanted to get out. And I tried to save them as much as I could to re-enlist. But obviously, if you say, hey, I'm not going to re-enlist, it's the Marine Corps says, okay, and they move on. He was going to be a lineman or something like that. He was going to go out somewhere in Kansas or something like that. And I said, hey man, I got this guy in the family. He does this war2In inspector stuff. He's got this great idea. I'm like, maybe you should just hear him out for a second. And for some reason, Frady was like, shit, I'll do it. And he just went out there. So Kenny was able to take him in, and without any of, the money for his tuition, work out a deal for him to be able to work off his schooling and things like that. And, he came back, and I think you said to me, Kenny, and I still remember it, is like, man, you can send me more Nathan Frady's, I can take over the industry, because is what we were talking about is those people. I mean, I remember him having a broken toe in Okinawa, and he worked and never bitched. He had a broken toe the whole time too. You know what I mean? So like, what was in Okinawa? It was Mountain Home. We were at Idaho Springs Mountain Home in Idaho. It's a training exercise. But yeah, he's just a hardworking kid. And then he goes out, gets his credentials. And where is he now, Kenny? I mean, let's tell his story of going out there.
Yeah. So I think before I go into the story, that was the put up or shut up moment. Cause I discussed this with you, Gunny, and in 2014. And so we were waiting for this building to open up at this NASET accelerator building, and they were behind schedule. So they didn't get the C certificate of occupancy until like October 1st. And we started classes October 7th. The Flagstaff high school football team came in as soon as we got the key and built all of our furniture. We had this stuff all boxed up, and purchased and assembled everything. But so when the opportunity for Nate to come, it was like, hey, is this going to happen or not? And so that was our first student. We had one other student start at the same time. And also Marine Corps, Ken Shortman. And so that was kind of the parting moment for me. It was, I left a great job and fantastic job, but this was my passion. And, the job's with the same industry, but, so Nate is in Australia. So he meets a girl here that's at Northern Arizona University, nursing school, or the university taking a nursing degree. They meet, she's from Australia. She's got to go back after she graduates. Nate Frady follows her back. And he goes and takes one of his exams. He scores the highest exam in the history of Australia for a phaser testing level 2 exam with AI NDE. And so he's supervising a company out there now.
That's unbelievable.
Supervising a company.
Yeah.
How old is he? Probably what, 28 now, baby? I don't even know if he's
probably.
That's amazing.
Great guy.
So
yeah, good times working with him. Yeah. So we went out on some really good outages. Longest outage I've ever been on was 92 days straight. And that was down in Westlake. And Brady and I were out there.
Westlake,
good times. Yeah.
So you had him. So, you had a couple of students, right? So you're starting to build up the school, and then you guys were still trying to figure out all the funding and how students were actually going to be able to pay for it. Because I was trying to send you more guys that were getting out, but the problem that we always seen was like they didn't have money saved up to go out there, go into a curriculum for a year or whatever. And I know you kind of worked around for the OJT and the internship stuff, paid internship. Those guys are making, I think you said, what, 30,000 in 6 weeks or something like that.
So we've had over the summer, in 3 months, we've had guys make that over the summer. And
that's
they've been
unbelievable, man.
On internships from like late May until August, September. So we've had some students who were able to stay out the entire summer, and that's happened several times. That's not, the obviously not the guarantee or norm. It doesn't always happen, but normally those projects are a little shorter than that, and they'll go out. Like these guys are out right now for like 3 weeks out, 7/12s on some nuclear power plants. And that can happen not necessarily just in the summer, but that can happen throughout the semester. Typically the outages are, spring and fall. The pipeline integrity really ramps up in the summer. So normally in the summer, we're doing pipeline integrity, DOT, PHMSA regulated inspection work for pipeline maintenance. And those are the employers that are given scholarships. So kind of getting into how does this work? The training is so specific that we can I really talk to the managers of these departments and like, what is your dream employee? If you could hire somebody and you saw the dream resume, and then we just build our students to that. And so they're definitely put at the front of the line when it comes time for employment. And so these employers offer scholarships, and they offer to pay half of our students tuition in exchange for employment agreements. So now sometime during the time that the students are here, usually late in the second semester, early in the third semester, employers make offers to them. And if they accept the employment offer upon graduation, then they'll pay half of their tuition. So that's, really reducing the cost of the schooling.
And I can tell you one thing about that, Gunny, is, when I went through SEPs and TAPs, this was never, ever taught about. And I think it's such it makes me so happy to hear Kenny talk about all these things, because, but it also at the same time makes me frustrated because of the fact that, when I got out off active duty, it was, hey, here's a list of corporate 500 companies that like to hire veterans. Here's how you fill out a resume if you want to go be a Walmart greeter. And don't forget that you're a Marine, you can adapt and overcome. Godspeed. High five. It's like, okay, yeah,
but it's changing. It's changing all the time.
You know what I
mean?
But being able to get in with the forefront of these guys that are getting out and making them aware that, look, you can get scholarships. It doesn't mean that you have to be an athlete. You can run a 12-second 440 because you're slow as shit, but you can get a scholarship because you're going through NDT pipeline inspection or becoming an inspector. That was, if the rest of the veterans are transitioning out, and like what you said really spoke volume, is if I don't find anything, I'm going to re-enlist. So what's that gonna do to our military? We're getting people that don't really want to be there. They'll become the majority of the military. They don't want to be there. We're not going to be strong. We're not going to be at our might. And we're going to push people out with no idea what to do. And this is going to be, they end up becoming if we don't handle it, a plague on society, because we're just like, look, I don't know what to do, guys. I've did 12 years, 8 years, 4 years in the Marine Corps. I don't know what's going on. And that's that transition phase, what you're offering with your school and being able to push it out there saying, look, come here, you can make $30,000 in 3 to 4 months on an internship, get your license or get your inspector degree, and then you're out making a wonderful living.
What I see the most is what Kenny was talking about is it's location.
Yes.
A lot of these kids, you ask them, hey, you're getting out, what do you want to do? I think the biggest thing is going to be location. Hey, I want to be in the Prescott, Arizona area. I want to be in the California area. I know because my family's there, right? So what companies and what skills do I have or do I need in order to move to that area and have a job that I'm not taking a hit to the money that I have, right? So with Kenny being able to have these contacts in these different companies and having the forethought to say, you know what, let's set it up this way so that I can be specific and give you these guys that are good caliber, that can pass a drug test, that have clearances, that are physically fit, that'll show up to work on time, right? That don't have weird face tattoos. I don't know. That doesn't matter. But however, I can train them. And I think kids at a young age, 18 to 25, they want another. And even ones that are older, like Angel Alvarez, sent him over there. He's got 22 years in the aviation industry as a Marine aviation ordnanceman. What are those guys that are leaving after 20 years going to have? They need to have another calling. They need to have another identity, taking off that uniform. And a lot of times if they stay that long, yeah, they might be able to get some retirement and disability, but they're still, right now as a gunny, I'm making around 100 and 120,000. You know what I mean? So what am I going to walk into after that? Can I be
where's your transition from going to being in charge of millions upon millions of dollars of equipment, national security, making a good living with your family, and then you transition out, you have a retirement. I got out after 12 years of staff sergeant, right?
Yeah.
So I was artillery and infantry was my background. Where's that transition from me not being able to start completely over at zero? Which, look, I completely understand. I got to start at the bottom. But at the same time, I put in a lot of work. A lot of other veterans put in even more work. So why don't we have exactly, and this is exactly what Kenny is offering. Yeah, you got to start at the bottom, but the bottom is you not starting completely over. That just means you're starting at the bottom of this field, but you're not starting over in life. You can carry on your way of life and your way of happiness with your family, but you're going to work your way up. And while you're working your way up, you're just going to
you got to grow. That's what this
grow.
Podcast is about. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're going to stay in the Marine Corps, and if you're hearing this, if you're a junior Marine and you're a corporal sergeant, if you're going to stay in the Marine Corps, you need to move up. If you're going to stay in the Marine Corps for 20 years, put in a warrant officer package. Get your college done. TA, you don't even have to wait anymore. Get your college done. Don't be an old gunny like me where I'm trying to get and finish my college degree at the moment of my 20-year retirement. Just though when I write that resume, it's not an associate's degree, it's a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. Like, you know what I mean? So get everything ready. But how do we, and I think what you're talking about, Matt, is how do we build those things? And that's what Kenny did. He said, you know what?
Exactly.
I'm just going to do it. I'm going to burn the boats. I'm going to listen to God's calling. God's tugging on this, but how do we get those people that are going to help further that along? And MVP was the same thing. God's working with me. I don't know if I'm a facilitator or something, but when I was like, hey, we should do this Righteous Dad podcast, we were going to call it Rad Dad podcast, but that shit was taken. Righteous being like a righteous father, a righteous person, a leader. And I think it was like perfect. And then I seen you guys and I'm like, yep. How can we help? But we have to build it. We can't have VA do things. VA is not going to solve the problem. We can't have TAPS and TAMs and all these transition and things be the perfect thing. They're not going to be. The USO actually has people that work and will do stuff for you. Yeah, they'll help you with your resume. They'll help you build a federal resume, the business resume, all those kind of things.
But how accessible
these Marines
are
have
those
to do
groups?
It. So how do we become like the nucleus, and how do we build all those neurons in order to help each other out? That's all it was. Hey, Angel doesn't have anything going. He loves to work. He's a freaking workaholic. Shout out to Angel Alvarez. That guy helped me with becoming a good inspector. Now I'm an inspector for, the Marine Corps for the whole West Coast, and I inspect all kinds of programs. But it's a regional job. I should be making $200,000-$300,000 probably when I get out of, if I did something like that. His experience is what's going to help further those things along. And now we have, MVP trying to become the new like VFW in a sense where we have that much traction or whatever, but we can bring all these guys in and say, you know what, even if it's one, even if it's a Nathan Frady, right? Even if even if it's one William, right? It's all that matters.
It's completely worth it. That one person is completely worth it.
And it grows. So
Oh yeah.
And
Angel Alvarez, he brought a lot to the table here. A couple years of him being here. Later, after he graduated, we hired him on, and he's still with us. But even as a student, our state board of education was coming in to do our first audits, and man, Angel said, "Hey, that's my cup of tea. I did this for hundreds of people." So we went through all our electronic and hard copy, records. The auditor came in. He was the former president of DeVry University, and he came in. And granted, we didn't have a lot of students at the time. It was about 17, but he said, "In this state, nobody's records are in better shape than yours."
Wow.
Just 100%, and commend you on everything and all your filing. And man, my biggest worry and ever since was right out the window. And that was in, probably back in 2015, 16, and that was what Angel brought to the table, all this talent that he is bringing from the military, and everybody that already has this talent. And they're like, what do I do with this? For ordnance, where am I gonna, what am I gonna do with that?
Yeah, am I gonna do that in commercial? I don't have rocket
something
bombs and shit on commercial planes.
But it takes somebody like yourself, Kenny, that understands that, 0311 infantry, 0811 artillery, ordnance, or ammo supply. How can you transition those jobs into the civilian world, and what can you pull out? And there, people all say it all the time. I've even said, "Oh, I'm just a trigger puller. I'm just a knuckle dragger. I'm out there just to, pull the triggers and do the job and go home. It's nothing." But there is so much more once you break it down and all those, and you're able to realize that through Angel, and you saw that through him. And not only did you see it, but and recognize it, but you gave him the full run to it and got him to his potential, right? So that right there is recognizing some of the biggest things that most veterans go through and that we see through MVP is like, man, I don't know, trying to think, I was a carpenter in the Army. Okay, well, dude, you just set yourself up. Why can't you, let's work at I don't want to be a carpenter anymore. Okay, fine. Let's look at something else, but let's correlate what you did in the Army and squad leadership, small platoon. If you were Amtrak, well, I drove Amtraks. There's no job in the civilian world that has Amtraks.
Well, not even in the military, but Andrew, Andrew being a civilian, right? So Andrew brings a different perspective over here. Andrew being a military, he's been in a job for a long time, right? And what if you wanted to transition? I know you're doing some program management courses and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's I was just thinking about that listening to Matthew speak. I mean, it's I've been in restaurant management for almost 20 years, and I'm considering transitioning out into another industry, and I'm having to learn the resume lingo, and just trying to figure out, because I have a lot of skill sets, but I got to figure out, like, I got to break them down and I figure out how to word it and figure out how does this apply to this, and making those connections. And that's a whole nother thing all in itself. If you're not used to applying to other jobs, and you're not used to doing a resume and stuff like that, that can be a really big anxiety for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
But what's anxiety for you for you if you were to say, hey, I'm gonna leave that job that I've been comfortable with, kind of like how veterans are with the military? It's an easy job, just show up.
Yeah, it's so simple.
But for you, what anxieties would have? I mean, you got kids, you got an area you got to you make six figures, you know what I mean? So you're just going to leave that job in hopes, but at least with this one, I mean, you're making good money off the bat.
Right. So. Yeah. There's definitely like a comfort thing, that you fall into. There's a lifestyle creep that happens when you start making more money, you start spending more, your lifestyle adjusts to that. And, a lot of times when you step into another industry, you do have to take a step back in salary because you're starting all over, so that's a I mean, that's a big anxiety right there. It's like, well, can I afford to take a $15,000-$20,000 pay hit, being a single dad, it's like, so you got to plan ahead. You got to make those right decisions. That's why, like certifications come in handy, or, getting a trade training or something, in your free time. But it's like, what's free time when you're a father and of three, and, you got a full-time career, and, you got a house, and, I got, you got pets, and
Yeah, sooner or later, those things you can't make those quick burning boat decisions, right? But it takes even more. You have a lot more to risk. You know, Kenny, you were talking about, you know, the song that your daughter played, things like that. I mean, when you jump and you're sacrificing that, but usually that's when greatness happens. And I think it's such an awesome thing that you were able to build something that really, in a sense, is like a boot camp. You go there, you're isolated, you're working your 10 hours a week, but you're surrounded with people that have that camaraderie and that brotherhood, and that's awesome. And I think, like with MVPs, the same thing. But I think it's hard for us as visionaries, even with this podcast, with having 100 subscribers, MVP having 700 members, you know, and Kenny being on its 5th or 6th year, right, being like full stream ahead. You want to grow so fast sometimes. Right now, it's hard because you want it to be everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, and we've had that temptation to kind of push to grow. And but I've always got to put the quality of the training first, and intentionally have held back some opportunities, because the reason they're getting employed is because of the quality, not because of the quantity. And if we can have a commitment to one individual, and what we try and do is get rid of this, like what you're just talking about, Andrew, is there's this gray area. If I were to transition, I really don't know what that's going to look like. And I really don't know if it's going to work. And do I have the skills? And there's so many skills that we're just redirecting skills that were already fundamental to that person as a child through their development in the military. And now they show up and they have this ability to work in just uncertain circumstances and unknown hours. And we go in, and it might be an 8-hour day, unlikely, but it might be an 18-hour day. And it's probably more likely to be an 18-hour day than an 8-hour day. And it's probably going to be 10, 12, 14 all the time. But they have that. They have that ability to go
embrace the suck.
And I was about to say the same thing. Embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Exactly. Semper Gumby, baby.
I love the look at the sweater that you're wearing. You know, the shirt that you're wearing is already an olive drab, anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's Marine Corps PT all day, baby.
Oh, yeah.
So I tell you what, though, you know, as somebody that, like, you know, I wasn't in the military, I'm a civilian, but you know, I've dealt with my fair share of anxiety, depression, a lot of the similar things that people who transition out deal with. And I tell you, like, I've never had a long, hard, you know, day where I put in a honest day's work where that stuff was like really controlling me. You know what I'm saying?
You feel better once you suffer. Yeah,
100%. I mean, when you're focusing on some, like, a mission and a goal, and you have something that you're working towards, your mind is, I mean, for the most part, it's gonna be overly occupied. You don't have time to slow down and think and dwell on things. And, well, why didn't I do this? And I could have done this different. You know, like, you're focused on your mission, your goal, you know, and having structure. I mean, those things are vital to people. I mean, especially I could see somebody who's, you know, potentially has PTSD, but I mean, you never know what anybody's dealing with, you know, and where they're coming from. They might be dealing with depression and anxiety, but having those structures in place, having, you know, putting in the hard work, you know, that makes such a big difference, in giving people goals to achieve, you know, and things to work towards. It's so vital for mental health.
You know, I think having go ahead, Matt.
No, go ahead, brother. Absolutely, go ahead.
Just having a purpose to vent your passion. And then I think our students that have suffered with PTSD, once they kind of got into the program and they got kind of going into it, they got out on a couple projects and they kind of saw the purpose, and there can be a really big purpose. At times we've, you know, found things on vessels that for 15 years hadn't been found. And there's probably some severe damage. Maybe I always think of people like Matt, the people Titanic. That they don't leave the plant. Like, we have our outage and we're gone, but we've made friends with them, and now they're staying there, and they're going to be working every day by that vessel I just inspected.
That's right.
And so there's a really big purpose to keeping our whole energy infrastructure up and running. We can't tolerate to wait 10 seconds for the lights to come on after we flip the switch. So, and it's just being part of that system and keeping that safe. And there can be some catastrophic damage. So that there's a real purpose behind what we're doing. And we can work with a lot of times individual or work with some big teams. And I think that they've told me has been kind of the best part for their healing is just getting back to walking away or retiring, leaving the military, and then all of a sudden having a renewed purpose being brought back into their life.
Yeah, it's fixing the infrastructure and fixing America, right? All those things are important, chemical plants, railroad tracks. I mean, we know what happened in Ohio. Like, look at different things happen, man. And
Absolutely.
And issues happen. So I think that's huge. And we talk about purpose and passion, right? MVP. And I think the bigger the goal, the more we're able to do, right? You put a big goal on somebody and they're able to climb that ladder. And our big goal in MVP too is to stop, suicide. How do you stop suicide? Well, you have to have a purpose and passion.
A program. You have to have a passion.
You have to have passion. There has to be a meaning to the suffrage, right?
As soon as you can get passionate about life.
Yep.
That's right.
Life is suffering, but what can you do? And Andrew spoke to this, and have such a good day or a hard day when you lay down at night and you say, you know what, at least I have this purpose and this passion. It's worth all the suffering. It's worth all that, whether it's with your kids. You have to have something. Some of these guys don't have kids. Some of these guys don't have really good relationships with family. You know what I mean? But when they can get in that brotherhood and they have that purpose and they go after it, that's it, man. But how do we share that, right?
Well, one thing that both Andrew and Kenny both touched on, and I think that's, and we preach it as well in MVP, and Gunny, you've heard me say it, and you've said it 1,001 times. We can't have MVP without veteran supporters being civilians. Warrior2 instructor needs civilians to be a part of your classes as well. And your video spoke volumes on it. We prefer veterans because obviously for obvious reasons, but we absolutely welcome civilians. And the same thing for MVP because, Andrew said it, he has suffered with anxiety and depression and, his own trauma in his own way. But how has he dealt with that trauma? He's dealt with it in the civilian world. How has Gunny and I dealt with our trauma? We have dealt with it in a military world, which is completely opposite and completely different. So it's nice to be, Kenny, you said earlier, veterans rub off on the civilians with discipline. Well, I 100% agree with that, right? Even in police academies I've been to, it's the same thing. The veterans kind of set the tone of that entire academy class, and it's always a veteran at the top. But I can tell you right now that you, Andrew, and the other civilians that's a part of MVP and a part of Warrior2 instructors rub off on the veterans as well. Because if you're wanting to send your son or daughter into the Marine Corps, are you going to tell them to go talk to an Air Force vet or a Navy vet? No. You're going to tell them to go talk to a Marine vet to get the inside scoop about the Marine Corps. So if I'm dealing with anxiety and depression and I'm in the civilian world now, I can't have the tools that I use to get that angst out of me, like how I had in the Marine Corps and law enforcement or anything else. So I'm not going to go talk to another vet because they're not going to know. But we have Andrew, we have you with Warrior2 instructor, Righteous Dad podcast, where we have more. So those are tools that we as veterans need, and it helps us mold back into the civilian world and be a part of this world and be contributing, because that's ultimately what everybody wants to do, is be a part of it and contribute. And that's that purpose that you're giving with Warrior2 instructor. That's the purpose we're giving with MVP as well, and they just meld into each other.
Yeah, that's like a perfect transition to the Williams. I wanted you to talk about Williams' testimony, because sometimes you get those guys that might be a little too far off or seemingly too far off for the PTSD and the VA side of things. We're like, hey, this guy might not be able to even function in society. But especially when you're like that guy that comes out of the military and you're trying to jump right in, I think what Matt's talking about is jumping into a civilian world. You do need to have like somewhere in between where it's kind of like lukewarm in order to get back into a different.
We got to go through the kiddie pool.
So, William, I think you're doing something so great with this, and it's a proof source for every person that's been in there. And I want you to have time to talk about William, because I know that's something.
His story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is I'm going to say 2018, we moved in this new building we're in Belmont, and it needed a parking lot expansion because, we were going to need a lot more parking spaces. And I knew his dad ran some heavy equipment, and he was here, to spread asphalt and do some parking lot upgrades. And so William was there and kind of running a shovel and just helping his dad out. And he's a Purple Heart combat medic, and he got torn up bad. And I mean, his mom told me that she basically had for 2 years to help him use a restroom. I mean, he was like physically had brain trauma, and he was really bad off. And the worst part of it is he was told he was bad off, like that he couldn't work anymore, that he couldn't function anymore, that
That's a dangerous seed to plant, man.
Yeah. And that's all that he had been fed. So he was just here, and we kind of opened the doors, and it was just on the weekends when they were working, and kind of showed him around, and he took some interest, and his dad came back and said, "Hey, I think my son might be interested in that. What would it take?" And man, it wouldn't take anything, just show up. And he graduated. So I'm kind of guessing about 3 semesters ago, maybe 4. He just about a month ago took some real prestigious exams called the EPRI exams in our industry and passed those. And he was telling me his proctor asked him about his training and how long he had been in the industry. And he was kind of blown away, the proctor, that he was able to pass those exams with, just a few years in the industry. And, awesome. And there's about, I'm kind of winging it, but there's probably, less than 1,000 people that have ever passed those exams. And it's a 5 weeks of testing that you go to take. And this is for the nuclear industry and turbines and super high critical components. And he's just kind of been, he got into the school, and once he got that out of his mind, that, and I'm looking at his notes, and I'm passing his book around like to all our civilian students, like, this is an example of how organized you need to be. And everything was just like he was putting out so much effort. He had top honors when he graduated. So we have a trophy that goes to the top student each year. And he received that. And it was really, he got that out of his mind that he couldn't do, that he was a damaged, his body was damaged. His mind was damaged. He was like, nobody had given him value. Like, you're not going to be able to have another purpose. And that, we got rid of that. And so, I mean, he went to a company that is based out of North Carolina, didn't have to relocate, still lives here in Flagstaff. Wow. And he does nuclear outages and moving to the top of the company. Some of the main people in the company were, bunking with him on outages. So I know that they're kind of probably grooming him to be their level 3 in the future. And
that's awesome.
And a great guy, great story, great family. But if that's a guy that would never probably have applied, like, oh, I can't do that.
Yep.
Like, I'm not going to be able to do that.
Well, to me, it sounds like Goodwill Hunting. Like, you want a guy who was pushing a mop or a shovel to now he's doing,
high level stuff,
physics on the chalkboard kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Where it's, but it's funny how you said it's what you plant in your head. It's like that's 12-step process and program for Alcohol Anonymous and things like that. Is like a lot of times those people, they have to fix themselves. It's not just the addiction, but fix whatever is ailing, whatever problem they have in their head. And I think we're doing a disservice when we tell service members that, hey, you're all messed up. You know what I mean? You just need to have those civilians come in and help. And I think that's a huge testimony. And I think it's awesome. I mean, that's God's work, man. You can't say it's not at all.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Helping Angel and helping us. That's God's work, man. It's just, you just got to listen. And when God says, do this, you got to be, and for you guys that are listening too, when we talk about, mental health and suicide, if you have a feeling that one of your buddies are having an issue, man, you have to do the hard thing and ask those questions. You know what I mean? How are you? Okay is not okay. You know, you need to be intrusive a little bit and show that you care. So yeah, when you told me that testimony, go ahead.
That sort of stops the conversation. Oh, I'm fine, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what you're really digging into, right, Matthew?
Yes, that's absolutely right. It's going beyond, you know, it's going beyond I'm fine. It's being able to like, okay, I got you. You are fine in this area. And that's so let's, you know, let's talk about that, but let's talk about the areas that you're not fine in.
What could great be?
What could great be? What could be better than great? What could be like, hey, I'm doing fantastic for the past 5 days in a row, and keep on spinning that off. You know, we talk about it all the time in the Salty Sailor Talks is taking those little wins, you know, being, you know, just, you know, talking about, you know,
what's the Salty Sailor Talk, Matt?
So every Saturday we have topics, and it's basically a group conversation about different topics. We jump in there. This past Saturday we had our VA talks, our benefits talks for, you know, filling out the proper VA paperwork. But every other Saturday we have, you know, discussions, and it's basically whatever the conversation goes. It's discussions like these, but they're also very thought-provoking and hard topics about mental health. And that's the conversations, exactly what Gunny was saying, is you have to ask those hard questions. And you need to feel comfortable with that person asking you that. And if you ask that question, you need to feel comfortable with getting a straight up honest answer. It's not like, oh, I thought you really were fine. I was this kid and I don't have 30 minutes to talk to you. I got to go. Man, that's not how you do it. Because all that's going to do is break that person down to where they're not going to want to open up again. And that's just not acceptable.
And this is not just for military veterans.
No, absolutely
not. Sailor Talk with the VA peer support specialist. We talk about all kinds of stuff. What does freedom mean to you?
Absolutely.
Is it okay to celebrate yourself? You know, some of these things that you have, these intimate conversations with masculine men and, you know, and women, it doesn't matter, but even civilians, like civilians have anxiety. Civilians have stress.
That's absolutely
civilians
right.
have the same things, man, where they don't, probably more so where they don't feel like they can talk to somebody because what is a friend? I know what a brother is because we're forced to be brothers, right? Whether you're dark green, light green, olive green, brothers. Whatever kind of green, right? You're still brothers. But when you come on the civilian side, like, what is that going to be? You know what I mean? So it might be different. People might be different. And I think that's what our society is kind of missing right now, is some of that. And so it's good to see that this is what's going to foster it. And hey, we have to build it, right?
Right.
Andrew, what do you got? You got something?
You know, yeah, no, like definitely I can relate to everything y'all just said. I mean, you know, it doesn't, I don't think in some aspects, it doesn't matter if you're military or non-military. You know, I've got things in my past that, you know, past traumas that I had to work through. You know, as a teenager, I had a friend commit suicide. Just 3 days prior to him committing suicide, he came up to me and, you know, made conversation with me and said, "Hey, call me anytime. Yeah, I'd love to hang out with you." And he gave me his phone number. And to this day, I still remember it. The phone number was 882-3444. And 3 days later, he committed suicide. And I had to live with that throughout, you know, I mean, that was 20 something years ago. That carried with me, you know, like, was he reaching out for help when he came up to me and said, you know, it was a very casual conversation. "Hey, call me anytime you want to hang out." But, you know, that's, you know, I live with a lot of regret from that. You know, I lost friends to drinking and driving when I was a teenager. You know, I lived with regret, even though I wasn't with them that night that they were drinking. You know, I was with them other nights, you know, like
survivor's guilt.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Survivor's guilt. I mean, I felt like guilty because in a lot of ways I could have been a better influence to them. If I could go back in time, what would I do different? And like that ran through my mind tens of thousands of times over the, you know, past 2 decades. And I mean, I'm 36 years old now. They've been gone 20 years. And only recently have I come to the realization that, like, I can't change the past, but I can change how I behave in the present and how I can, you know, change the future based off of the decisions I make today. And how do I do that? I am a good influence to people around me.
So Andrew, repeat that. What did Gandhi say?
What
was that saying you said earlier?
Be the change you want to see in the world, you know? And that's really kind of the philosophy that I live by. Is I try to be a good father. I try to be a good manager and a good boss. I try to be a good employee, and I try to be a good
A righteous
partner.
dad.
Try to be, I try to be righteous in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
but it boils down to, are the decisions I'm making right now in this moment going to leave me with the possibility of regret in the future? And
Right.
it boils down to a lot of things like am I, if I get into an argument with my ex-girlfriend, my daughter's mother, or my ex-wife, or whatever the case may be, is that gonna, what if that's the last time I ever talk to her?
Right.
It is like, what,
Yep.
am I encouraging people to go out drinking, or am I encouraging people to come and spend time doing, like, hey, why don't you come to the gym with me? Things like that. Like, am I gonna making good decisions today that's gonna leave me feeling better tomorrow? And that, and so like that's definitely a lesson that I learned just from 2 decades of living with survivor's guilt, living with regret, in situations like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely relate to everything that y'all were saying in that regard.
Yeah, you want to be the light of the world, right? So, that's part of it. I don't know how religious people are, but but if you're not religious, I can understand it, but you want to be the light of the world, and you want to be able to help each other and bring each other up. And human beings are here to do what? We're here to create. We're here to love and create. Creation's everything. So those of you guys, that's what Righteous Dad's all about too, is not just helping people find, transition to different careers or to deal with mental health, but is to inspire people and share other people's stories from so many different walks of life to inspire and say, you know what, if you want to create change and you want to do something, then do it. Burn the boats, quit telling yourself excuses and shit, get some friends and just do it. Like, you can talk about it all day, but put action into words. And I think that's kind of what we've been hitting on this podcast episode is there is people that you can find. And there are people out there like Kenny and like Matt that are building things that are trying to change the world. And I'm on board. I'm on board with both. I'm always going to push people to both your guys' way. And I'm happy to have my friendship with Andrew. I'm happy to have this podcast where we're building something together to try to bring that message to everybody else. And hopefully in the future we do more episodes. Real quick because we're getting up to about, 66 minutes. I don't want to make it too much longer, but I want you, Kenny, to be able to plug, where do we find you? If these people and these vets and these civilians and people that want to have a transition to a different career path, where can they find you, and what's the easiest way to get started?
Yeah, I think, if you're out of the area, we're in Northern Arizona, probably first go to our website, www.war2in.org, WAR2IN.org. So that's short for War Warrior, 2 transitioning into Inspector, IN for Inspector. So if you go to our website, there's a section there for student inquiries. So just request information and we'll send you information on the school. So that would be the most direct. If you're in the area or passing through, we're here 10 hours a day, Monday through Thursday. You can just drop in and just check us out anytime. But that would probably be the most quickest way to get information. If you wanted information, by the end of the day, you could hit us up with an email and you'll get a package out with information, just not on our school only, but the whole industry, salary survey, nationwide salary survey, information on our school, why it's, what problems we think we solved in the industry for, transitioning military veterans, for employers trying to find the right employee that's actually qualified and certified. And so we're kind of helping people on both ends. So that would be the first thing. Go to the website and check us out. All those photos, the photo gallery is just showing us and our students doing what we do. We don't have canned photos on there. So they're all off of these projects that we've been on. And so that would be the quickest route. So we'll send you information. And then if you want to follow up to get enrollment information, we'll do that.
Awesome. Hey, Matt, I want you to be able to plug too. If you want to be a part of MVP, how do I find that?
Our website's myveteranpassion.org. You can also join us on Discord. It's one of our main hubs, and that's discord.gg/myveteranpassion. And that's how you're able to join up on our Discord. We're on all of our social medias. We have a workout going on tonight. We have several programs throughout the week. Cooking shows every other week. Salty Sailor Talk every Saturday. VA benefits talk. Multiple aspects. We work with Stream for a Cause with different grants and streaming platforms, being able to game and also work out nutritional facts. We do a lot. Mobility strengthening. The live shows are on a hiatus right now until the instructor comes back from her actual job. And that's something beautiful about MVP as well. Is I have a full-time job. Doc Soto, who is the founder, has a full-time job. Z, who is the other member of the board, he has a full-time job. He nurses. He works at the Mayo Clinic along with his wife in Minnesota. That's a very prestigious clinic. So we're very passionate about this, and this comes from our heart, and being able to sit down and learn and talk with people like Kenny and Andrew and Gunny. You made the introduction to these two guys, and I'm a better person just from sitting down and talking with them. And this is exactly the type of people and the environment and the organizations that we want to be a part of and have a part of us as well. Because Kenny, what you're doing in Flagstaff, and Andrew, what you're doing in Virginia, man, it's if you guys are succeeding, we're going to succeed, and vice versa. If we succeed, you guys are going to succeed. I call it the ladder technique, and we're just going to be able to bring ourselves up to that next rung. And because our ultimate goal in the whole scheme of things is veteran mental health, getting veterans transitioning, and showing the world what a righteous dad is, or a righteous man, righteous woman, righteous child should be, and having it doesn't matter what religion or political party or agreements or disagreements is. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And that's what you guys are living every day, and showing that and emulating that on all your episodes of this podcast. And it's a beautiful thing. So I thank you guys for letting me be a part of this, allowing MVP to come on here and to be with Kenny and to hear his story and his testimonials, which is just, it's inspiring to say the least, man. It really is.
Yeah. I'd like to just say something to the listeners. Our school, it's 2,000 hours, 10 hours a day. It's pretty hardcore. It's got to be to get you ready for the industry. But if you're wondering if you're qualified, you're already qualified. You just need to go through the formalities. And we have a couple slogans, not to be cliche, but one is your career, our mission. And my favorite one is failure is not an option.
Thank you.
So you go through this program and you take your test, and we test you when you're ready to test. We practice test you over and over, and we watch your scores to be up in that 95%. Then we know you're ready to test. You don't go to take a class, fail the class, and sorry, you failed the class. So there's no failure. You're going to retest. To me, that's my problem. That's a teaching problem. So I need to, be a little more specific with some individuals on certain things. And the way we teach has to correspond to the way they learn. And that's not going to be, we teach it, and here's one variety for everybody. And then the people that variety of teaching didn't work, then we got to individually work with you, and we'll get your scores where they need to be up and above industry expectations. So, but failure's not an option at our school.
Why those sayings are cliche? Because people that said those saying he said that, and I'm done after this. I'm sorry to hit it, Andrew, but those sayings are cliche because people that say them over and over don't mean a damn thing behind it. That's why they're cliche. The people that spit those sayings out, they have nothing to fucking back it up with. But whenever you say it, Kenny, you're practicing what you preach. So it's not cliche. It means that you mean it. You absolutely 100% mean it. So don't ever think that, those sayings for you and what you're doing is a cliche thing, because you're backing up what it is. It's never a cliche when you're backing it up, brother.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're doing, man.
Amen.
I appreciate both your guys' service. Andrew.
Oh, absolutely. And Kenny, that's really inspiring what you just said about your teaching methods and making sure that everybody, you test. And then when they're ready, and you see that they're developmentally got to that level, then you give them the test. That's awesome. I mean, And that teaching method, I mean, I think the education system in America could definitely take take note to that, because that's amazing. That's the quality of teaching that you give your students, and it just shows how much you care for your students. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on and being our guest on this show. It's been amazing hearing your story. It's amazing hearing like what you're doing for the community, not only for for your industry, but for the military community and the veterans that are involved in your program. And also, Matt, thank you again for coming on, man. I mean, I love talking to you. I love talking to my, being from Louisiana. It feels really good having somebody else from Louisiana on the show. It's your story is also inspiring. I always think back to your episode when the first time we had our conversation, you told your story, and it's one thing. I'm very blessed to be able to be a part of this. And Brian, thank you so much for being an inspiration for me, because you said it the best when you were talking, Matt, is that being around you guys and men of your caliber makes me a better man. So being friends with Brian and Brian being the man that he is, that makes the connections to Matt and makes the connections to Kenny and figures out a way to bring you all together and bring us all there, and brought me into the picture because he felt like I was worthy of being a part of this. I'm eternally grateful for the relationship that I'm able to have with every last one of you. So thank y'all for coming on today. Thank y'all for being a part of this. And again, that's I think that's a good note, good place to end this episode. I
want to thank the viewers too. It's because of you guys. So when we're talking about these inspirational stories and we're bringing these awesome people on our books, please, if you get anything out of this, please like, share, subscribe, but share it to your friends and family, the people that could use this, and just to inspire each other and bring each other up. So I thank you for your time, because you could be doing anything else. And I hope you come back to the next one. And until then, stay righteous.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gonna feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding from the words I spit. So sharp, so freezing, so cold. Behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts peeling. I don't pace myself, I grind on kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times, cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. And I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times, cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gonna feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will,